The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination, other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media, is strictly prohibited.
All right, welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bount. Today, our panel will be continuing our answering of listener emails about a topic which has dominated our mailbag. Listener emails from around the world are asking for the panel's take on the recent Zelensky-Trump Oval Office meeting. Our question comes from Marie, who lives in Liverpool, England, and Marie asks, after watching the Trump-Zelensky Oval Office meeting, I admit I cried. I am an expat who moved to England 15 years ago, yet I have always been proud of my country of birth and have defended the U.S., even when I know we made stupid mistakes. Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. But there are no words I can find to defend what Trump and his piece of crap vice president did to a world hero who has stood strong for his nation and his people in the face of overwhelming odds. I admit to feeling ashamed and am seriously thinking about revoking my U.S. citizenship. I listen to the podcast all the time, and one theme I keep hearing is that the U.S. has become something none of you recognize. So I would ask for your honest assessment. Is this the beginning of the end of the United States, the beacon of the beacon of freedom and democracy? Are we headed toward a future where we have become those ideologies that we have so strongly stood up against since the end of World War II? Is this truly what Americans see as making America great again? And lastly, is there any hope that we can find our way back? So what do you say? Mark, Scott?
We're thinking.
I also cried. Well,
we're thinking.
With distress and anger. At what I saw.
And I certainly am, and I'm sure Mark does as well, share that, that fear. I think that that's real. I mean, there's, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and start thinking about, martial law and start thinking about having the army active in the United States against posse comitatus, and I don't want to get too far into is there going to be another election? Will he leave peacefully as he did not last time until he tried everything else? Which reminds me of something Churchill said, right? Americans can always be counted on doing the right thing, usually after they've tried everything else, and we're trying the other stuff now. The cult of Trump is strong, but it's still relatively small, I think. And that the soft edge of that is pretty fat. In other words, there are people who support Trump because they think that he has the right idea for America. And if they are proven wrong, perhaps they would abandon that and go back to, ordinary Republicans. Probably, I don't think they'll become Bernie Sanders fans, but they may just go back to regular Republicans and start thinking the way that regular Republicans have always thought about free markets, for example, right? So we are in a period right now where everything is being manipulated by politics, by politicians, by Trump. Everything, oil prices and prices of groceries, et cetera, et cetera. Everything is political now. There's no more free hands. Trump is making a deal with Saudi Arabia and Russia to release more oil on the world, which OPEC has not done since 2022. And they are doing now, which will lower prices for consumers. So that's good. It will destroy the domestic oil market because they're not going to keep drilling if there's no profit in it. And the expectation is that oil prices per barrel will fall below 60, maybe even get to $50 a barrel, which would make it unprofitable for American oil companies to drill, baby, drill. So, the world is a complex place. There's no easy solutions that don't have negative implications elsewhere. And in a sense, you have to pick your poison. Getting back to the future of the United States, what we're seeing is court battles, which is the logical step, right? So a decision is made by the executive branch. There has been no legislation so far, even though he has the House and the Senate. There has been no legislation. Everything is being done by executive order, which is strange. But those executive orders are essentially press releases with punch. And as soon as a group feels aggrieved enough to oppose them, they take them to court. And 23, I believe, Democratic attorneys general are actively have been prepared for this and are actively going to court. And the first of those rulings reached the Supreme Court today, and the Supreme Court ruled against Trump, restoring funding to U.S. aid. So, will Trump, the next question logically is, will Trump obey? He has so far. We don't know what he's going to do in the future. If he doesn't, does that trigger a constitutional crisis? It certainly could. And then, it's a whole new ball game and we're talking about something else. But for now, I would not revoke my U.S. citizenship yet based on what we've seen so far.
Yes. And Scott's right. The feelings you had during the televised viewing of that meeting, yeah, it hurt. It hurt a lot. There was a lot of embarrassment. There was a lot of anger to it, and that's a natural feeling. I agree with Scott in the sense that I don't think we're there yet. I kind of look at it a little different from the standpoint of not the administration, not from Trump, not from the Congress or anything else. I listen to what the people are saying. And although Scott is correct, there are a very small number of people that are the Trump cult compared to the overall supporters of the Trump movement. I think he's right. You've got that group that'll never give it up. I mean, that's just the way that's the hill they've decided to die on. But you've got a very larger group that supported Trump this past election that are movable, especially if promises are not kept and they see themselves, spiraling. And you do hear a lot of that now. There's people talking about, there was a news article out that the money that getting rid of the IRS agents is going to cost us more money than it saved us. The idea of getting rid of those people at the Energy Commission that, by the way, controlled our nuclear arsenals, and they had to hire them back. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem. There's, the fear that people who receive Social Security and Medicare, the fear that they have as people in the Social Security Administration are being let go. And people can realize, yes, that person is 30 years old. He probably doesn't give a damn about people in the Social Security Administration getting let go. The person that's on Social Security, they do care. So it's kind of from the perspective that they sit, and as it should be. Although we also should care about, if you're 30, you probably have a grandparent that's on Social Security. You really should still care about it. Yeah, it doesn't impact you directly right yet, but we should still care. You should still really, give a shit about that because it's going to affect somebody that you know and love. My issue is the response that the people are falling for this. And that's the part that I really have the hardest part. And if the United States ceases to be who and what it was, it won't be because of Trump. It will not be because of Trump. It'll be because of the people of the United States allowed it to happen. As Scott said, we are not in that area yet where we're talking about things like martial law or the military coming into cities. We're not there yet. And the courts are showing that they can hold. And I've always said the real question is going to be, can the system itself hold? There's plenty of checks and balances on there. Can they hold? However, that's important, but the people, those people that go to the polls or who do not go to the polls, equally as important. Those who do not go to the polls, those people simply have got to get a new attitude. What do you want this country to actually be and look like? And here's the bad news. This is a complex world. It can't be all about you. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. It cannot be all about the United States. We are, whether we like to admit it or not, interconnected with the world around us. And the people of the United States, those that just simply do not have the capacity to critically and analytically think, don't understand that or don't want to understand that, or that's too big of a problem for them to comprehend for whatever reason there is. But that causes the apathy. That truly does cause the apathy that gets you a Donald Trump. And you're stuck with it now for 4 years unless something happens. That's the problem that you've got. Can we turn the page and go back? You can always turn the page and go back. You always can. But it's just like the alcoholic. There comes a point in time where, and I worked with the Department of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services in New York about 30 years ago. And everyone that was in that field always said the only time an alcoholic ever decides to not be an alcoholic is they have to hit, number one, rock bottom, the lowest of the low point in their lives, and they have to decide that they are going to do it. You can't decide it for them. And we're basically in the same situation here with the United States and the people of the United States. I hope it isn't that we have to hit that rock bottom for us to come to the realization, holy crap, we really did a stupid thing. You hope that doesn't happen. But if we can make that determination, if we can make that object of self-awareness to where we say, you know what, we're going in the wrong direction. This is not what we want. Because when I was watching that news conference or that meeting, all I could think of was, I don't recognize this country anymore. I have no idea where I am. I would never have thought, and that my fellow citizens would be okay with this. And I think that was the thing that was the hardest for me. My fellow citizens are all right with this. Forget Lindsey Graham. Yes, he's just an idiot. He's doing the party line because he's only caring about what the Republicans say. He didn't give a damn what the South Carolinians say, even though most of them probably agree with him. But if they didn't, he wouldn't really care. He cares what the Republicans say, what Trump says. He's endowed into that. But we've got to get out of that. And to me, that's the part that hurt me the most. Yes, it was painful to watch the Oval Office meeting. It was even more painful to see the reaction from the American people. That is what. And if that continues, then I'm afraid I don't think that we can recover. Maybe we can't. Maybe, maybe we don't deserve to.
Well, for my part, certainly revoking citizenship is a very personal decision. I don't see that you have to. Marie, I don't see that you have to come back to the United States, certainly if you don't want to, and I don't see that you have to defend the United States for any reason, if you choose not to.
However, Brooke, hang on a second, Brooke. There is a reason. Brother-in-law of mine moved to Israel, and he went there. If you're a United States citizen, we're about the only country in the world that does that. If you're a United States citizen living in another country, you not only pay taxes to the country you're in, you pay taxes back to the United States as well.
It depends on how much money you make.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming if you can live in England, you probably are making enough money to be able to pay back to the United States.
True. That would be a point. what I was going to say, I was thinking about, Mark, what you just said, and the Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. There's been a lot of pushback, apparently, that Republican, I guess they're senators who have been doing town halls face to face with their constituents who have been very, very inflamed about what been seeing Trump doing, what they've seen Elon Musk doing, to the extent that first some Republicans were saying, well, the Democrats have paid you to be resistant and objectionable. And that was very loudly booed down. And sorry, that was very loudly booed down. And then the other point that Mike Johnson made to Republicans was just don't have any more live town halls. It was not listen to what your constituents are saying. Let's not let's do something about what's happening here. It was, well, just don't have any more town halls. Don't talk on the phone. Maybe talk on the phone to your constituents, but don't do any more live town halls. And the one, as I understand it, the Republicans who voted against Trump and the first administration time around were having to wear body armor and had to have additional security for themselves, private security that they paid for themselves, because they were afraid of being killed by people who supported Trump, by constituents who supported Trump. That is one reason why the Republicans, senators, and probably also the House, they're doing nothing because they're terrified. And I think that they would all have to stand up together and say no, and be prepared to take the consequences, and be prepared to take on the Americans who are in the cult and who are armed and who don't want to have their favorite orange person be disrespected in any manner. Can we recover? I don't know. Once trust has been lost as severely as this, between a leader and like Trump and allies, another leader, like a Democrat, let's say, who is very, very skilled with communication and leadership and negotiation, and soft skills, might be able to rebuild trust to an extent. However, the leadership elsewhere will certainly know of the history of the United States and the huge stain of the first and now particularly the second Trump administration, and will be aware that other Republicans might come in, and unless the Republican Party itself can recover, I don't think that the United States will ever be fully trusted ever again. I mean, once trust is lost in a relationship, it's very difficult to regain it fully. So I don't know if it's possible for the United States really ever to recover. And as Mark said, I don't know if the United States deserves to. I really don't. We'll have to see how far all this goes, and whether there is an election in 2026, and whether that is in fact free and fair, and whether there's an election in 2028, and whether Trump follows the Constitution and does not run again, whether there are additional violations of the Constitution and exactly how terrible they are. We will have to see, but I don't I was worried prior to this, as Mark and I have had conversations over the years, that Trump would not only be the Republican candidate, but that he would wind up back in the White House. So I've been worried about my fellow Americans for a long time, and their propensity to have short memories, and their propensity to to put someone like Trump back in the White House. And here we are. So yeah, I'm very concerned about the percentage of support that Trump still has, which seems to me far too high for what he's doing. I just don't know. I'm not sure what. Obviously, I mean, I can't prognosticate the future, but it's if the courts are ignored and the federal marshals are ineffective, then we have a serious problem in this country. So I hope I answered your question, Marie. I really do. Scott, what else do you have?
So
That's it. Mark, anything?
I'm good.
Alrighty. So thank you, everyone. And we will join you again. We do have one more question from our email bag that we will answer about the terrible debacle from the Trump-Zelensky meeting that we will get to next week. And we will have other listener emails that we will also get to next week. And so we will see you again next time on the Nova Society. Stay safe, everyone. And thank you for listening. Huh?
And cut.
And cut. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or a comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, BH Conflict Resolution Services, a full-service dispute resolution firm offering expert and cost-effective mediation services to couples, groups, and businesses. BHCRS can be reached at www.bhcrs.com.